Hello, everybody. I am outside the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center here in Dallas. And please excuse me, it is really cold out here today. But I wanted to come out here because I'm going to be doing a very important video about Dr. King's dream. Extremely important. And I thought it would be great if I came over here and just got some footage over here about in front of or close to the facility that bears his name. This facility is right here in the African American section of Dallas, the city of Dallas. We call it South Dallas. And we're actually on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, actually. And this huge facility right here in his honor, and they're gearing up to and have been celebrating his birthday for the past couple of days. And I'm getting ready now to show you a statue of Dr. King. So I'm going to turn the camera around so that you can see it here. All right, hold on. Let me get a little closer look. So here it is. There we go. And this is the facility. It's a pretty nice facility. Very nice facility here that does a lot of things for the community. And once again, I thought it was just really important to come out here, even in the cold weather. They do a lot of things for the community, as you see right here. Provide some healthcare needs. So we are really grateful for that. All right. So, yes, Dr. King, this is the front entrance. They're closed for today. This is the front of the library. The people are really nice who run this facility. I'm familiar with these people. They do a lot of good work, a lot of work for the homeless. So here's the sign that bears his name. Good. Doing well. How you doing? Good, man. So here we go, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center. South Dallas Community Center. Excellent. All right, let me put the camera back on me here. So, I'm going to be doing a video about the dream that Dr. King talked about in his very famous I Have a Dream speech. And I'm going to talk about how white conservatives have hijacked that dream and have even weaponized it. So I needed to come over here though and just walk around this facility for a few, just to show you how important Dr. King's dream is. But again, it is excruciating cold out here. And we see a lot of homeless people in this area. There's someone right over there, in fact, let me show you, who is wrapped up in a blanket. I don't know if you can see this person, but across the street over there, wrapped up in a blanket. And there's somebody else over there. And with this wind, let me tell you, with this wind, it probably feels like it's 9 or 10 degrees out here right now. It's unseasonably cold for the city of Dallas. But we are going to experience some really cold weather over the next few days and nights. We used to do a lot of work over here with the homeless because there's a big homeless population over here. In fact, we'll probably go and grab some some sleeping bags, buy a bunch of sleeping bags and bring them back over here tomorrow. If we do that, and I'm sure we will because it is really, really, really cold out here. If we do that, I'll bring that back. I will record that so that you can be a part of that. All right? So I am Reverend and Attorney Augustus Corbett. I'm outside the Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center where it is really, really, really cold. Very cold. And so you'll see the rest of the video where I talk about how white conservatives have hijacked King's dream. So the next time you hear from me, that's what you'll be hearing about. So today is the birthday celebration of one of the greatest Americans ever, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I look forward to celebrating his birthday every single year. Every year, I look forward to reminding America what this great American said and how he made this country better, how he gave his life to make America a better place. Now, most people remember Dr. King from his famous I Have a Dream speech. He gave that speech in the height of the civil rights movement. Unfortunately, white Americans have hijacked that speech. They have also weaponized that speech against African Americans. I'm going to explain to you how this has happened and how they're using it to harm the African American community. It's amazing that they figured out a way to take the words of the beloved Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to hurt the African American community, but they have done so. And I'm going to explain to you exactly how they did it. Stay with me right after this. Hello, I'm Attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers, and each and every week we bring you at least one legal analysis of a trending story having to do with politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower you with the information you need to defy an unjust legal system and to nullify systemic racism. If that interests you, please subscribe, like, share, comment, and click the bell so you'll be notified when we upload one of these videos. So yes, as I said in the opener, I'm going to show you how white conservatives have hijacked and weaponized, of all things, the I Have a Dream speech. They cleverly used it to harm African Americans. And I'm going to explain to you how they did it so that we can try to reverse the harm that they are causing the African American community. Let's go to another screen. Hijack Dream, how white conservatives weaponized King's dream. White conservatives are masters at co-opting, whitewashing, and weaponizing terms that blacks use to fight racism. Terms like critical race theory, or CRT, woke, or wokeism, justice, and even racism. Whites have co-opted, whitewashed, and weaponized each one of those terms. Critical race theory doesn't mean anything the way they have redefined it. Nor does woke, nor does justice, nor does racism. Maybe the most consequential example of how they have whitewashed, co-opted, and weaponized terms that we use to fight racism is again the famous "I Have a Dream" speech that Dr. King gave in 1963. 1963. Overlooking most of the speech, white conservatives seized on one line of that speech and weaponized it. That line is, "I have a dream that one day my little 4 children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream." Now, when you read that, that sounds so wonderful and powerful, and most people knew exactly what Dr. King meant. But white conservatives took that phrase and turned it completely against the African American community. The monstrous issue with the white conservatives' interpretation of the speech is twofold. Number one, they overlooked the radical parts of the speech. They focused on one phrase in that speech and overlooked all the powerful, radical things that Dr. King said. For example, and I'm quoting Dr. King, this is the actual transcript. He said, "When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so, watch this real closely, we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. And so we've come to cash this check. That's what that speech was about. The speech was about African Americans coming to Washington to demand what was owed to us. Dr. King said, "It's time that you make this check good." He really was talking about reparations. It was time that you pay us for all the labor, the work, the fact that we laid the foundation of this country, the fact that we toiled and suffered and were victimized by you, and we got nothing in return. And so he says, based on those highfalutin documents that you wrote, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, he says, based on those documents, we are coming to Washington. We are here to get our check cashed. It was a demand for reparations. And then he went into, "I Have a Dream." And I'm told that it was the gospel singer Mahalia Jackson who told Martin to talk about the dream. And so he ended the speech talking about the dream. And no doubt it was the crescendo of the speech, but it was not the major part of the speech. The major part of the speech, the actual major significant part of the speech, was the fact that he, along with all African Americans, were coming to Washington to make that check good. But what did white conservatives do? They focused on one aspect of his speech. One aspect. Let's go back to the other screen. Second, they redefined what King meant when he said he didn't want his children judged by skin color. So when Dr. King said that he didn't want his 4 children judged by their skin color, but by the content of their character, he wasn't saying to look at black people and not see color. He was saying, don't harm me because of my color. Don't enslave me. Don't oppress me. Don't subjugate me because of my color. Don't discriminate against me on the basis of my color. He was not saying his children should not receive redress for past discrimination or damages or preferences for current discrimination. That's not what he was saying. Yet white conservatives twisted what he said to make it seem as though that's what he was saying. But it makes no sense. Surely Dr. King, who was the civil rights leader, was not coming to Washington to say to white America that you can't look at my race and you can't use my race and the fact that I have been harmed because of my race. You can't look at that not to do things to try to redress or to address what I have dealt with and continue to deal with as an African American. He certainly didn't go to DC to say that. He was simply saying, don't discriminate and don't harm us based on race or color. Yet white conservatives, again, weaponized that one line in several ways. Here's how they did it. Number one, they renamed the phrase colorblind. And King, again, was not arguing for a colorblind society, which is impossible in the first place. How can you possibly look at us, a diverse nation, and not see color? And besides, America has never been colorblind. America has always seen people through the prism of color. They see themselves as white, meaning they are superior. They see blacks as inferior, and so on. So America has never one time, 1 second, 1 minute been colorblind. Yet they applied that term to Dr. King's simple phrase of he wanted his children to be judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. So they came up with this deceptive term called colorblind. All right, how else did they do this? Second, they used the phrase to develop the term reverse racism. I know you've heard that, reverse racism. This term allows them to argue any use of race to benefit blacks is discrimination against whites, Asians, etc. See how clever that is? And all of this, by the way, is based on the 14th Amendment, which gave African Americans citizenship, due process rights, and equal protection under the law, the Equal Protection Clause. And it was added to the Constitution for African Americans. And it would not have been added to the Constitution except because of race. So it was added to the Constitution to, again, create benefits for African Americans because African Americans had been oppressed for hundreds of years in this country. That was the purpose of the 14th Amendment. It has a twofold purpose. Number one, don't discriminate against African Americans based on color. That's what King said. But also, because you have discriminated against African Americans for hundreds of years, it is not a violation of the 14th Amendment to create programs to help African Americans get where they should be in the first place. Programs like affirmative action do not contradict or run afoul of the 14th Amendment. But the U.S. Supreme Court this past summer said otherwise. And it was based on the fact that they claim that the Constitution is colorblind, that the nation is colorblind. And this nation has never, ever, ever been colorblind. We all know that. So they use this argument, this colorblind argument, this reverse discrimination, reverse racism argument to end affirmative action. And now they are attacking DEI initiatives. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they're using King's dream speech to dismantle any and everything that is or was created to benefit African Americans. Affirmative action, DEI, and all other initiatives, because they hijacked and weaponized Dr. King's speech. Once again, they overlooked what he really came to Washington to say, which was, make this check good. This check bounced. This check that you wrote us bounced. We didn't get what the Declaration of Independence promised us. We didn't get what the Constitution promised us. So it's time to make this check good. Instead of focusing on that, they twisted his words and came up with this colorblind, reverse racism garbage and have successfully used it to dismantle the very laws, the very programs that the 14th Amendment was added to the Constitution to create and to protect. Let's go back to the slides. Again, they essentially hijacked and weaponized King's dream. Now, this man, Edward Blum, he is the man who was behind the dismantling of the affirmative action program that we saw the U.S. Supreme Court do this past summer. And he used Dr. King's words in the I Have a Dream speech to accomplish that. How ironic is that? Dr. King's very words, they have weaponized, white conservatives have weaponized the words of the man who is known as the drum major of justice. They use his words against his own people. That is just evil. It's really sinister. It's low down. It's despicable. But they're getting away with it. Edward Blum is this man's name. And he recently filed suit against a venture capitalist company that raised money to help fund and start Black female-owned businesses. So he's in the court system now using Dr. King's words to try to stop companies from setting aside money to help fund Black female-owned businesses. Never mind the fact that Black people get less than 1% of loans from the SBA. And whites already have 7 to 10 times more net worth than the average black family because of 400 years of oppression. Never mind all that. It's just the most sinister thing. And I'm trying to help you understand it so that you can fight against it. What you need to know, once again, is they took that part of Dr. King's speech where he said, I want my 4 children not to be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He was saying, I don't want my kids to be harmed because of their race. Now, of course, Clarence Thomas, he also has used Dr. King's dream speech against the African American community. He said in this most recent affirmative action case, he says the Constitution's colorblind rule reflects one of the core principles upon which our nation was founded, that all men are created equal. That is laughable. Because when they wrote those words, they did not have black people in their minds. They were not saying all men, including black men, were created equal. That was the very reason why Dr. King gave the I Have a Dream speech in the first place. Because he said that the Declaration of Independence had not been fulfilled for African American people. And yet Clarence Thomas is going to come back and say that our country was founded on the notion that all men are created equal. What is wrong with him? I mean, you just wouldn't think an African American man would hold such a position and make such an argument when history is very clear about the Declaration of Independence not applying to all people, and it never has. And as far as some people are concerned, some white conservatives, it never will, if they have anything to do with it. Again, what is wrong with this guy? Fortunately, this brave, powerful woman has been appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in that same affirmative action case, Justice Jackson said, our country has never been colorblind. She just brought the truth and the heat. She told it like it was. In her dissenting opinion, she said a lot of things, but I reduced it down to just this one sentence. Our country has never been colorblind. Now, what exactly did Dr. King himself say about affirmative action? Because they twisted his words, and let me prove it to you. This is an excerpt out of his book. The book is entitled, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? He said, quote, it is, however, important to understand that giving a man his due may often mean giving him special treatment. A society that has done something special against the Negro for hundreds of years must now do something special for him in order to equip him to compete on a just and equal basis. Now, that is a clear endorsement of affirmative action, and it refutes, strongly refutes, that bogus argument that Dr. King was intending to create this colorblind society, this so-called reverse racism discrimination argument. That's absolutely not what he went to Washington to accomplish. He went to Washington to say, it's time you make this check good, because you, on the basis of race, have cheated, defrauded, robbed, stole, and all other sorts of things to the African American people. Again, on the basis of race. That's what Dr. King was saying. And I just showed it to you out of his own book, things that he wrote with his own pen. White conservatives, in a very sinister, shrewd, clever, and I don't mean any of that in a nice way. I mean it all nefariously. It was evil the way they took Dr. King's words and turned them around to harm the African American community. They whitewashed his speech, and now they have weaponized it against us. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to continue to allow them to use Dr. King's speech against us? It is the reason why every year on King's birthday, you see white conservatives out saying or doing something about Dr. King because they have taken his speech and completely weaponized it against us. When they know in their hearts, and we know in our hearts, that they were not a friend of Dr. King, they did not like what he stood for, and they celebrated when he was murdered. We all know that. So we in the African American community, we need to take that speech back from white conservatives. And while we're doing it, we need to take back from them the meaning and definition of critical race theory and wokeism and what justice means and what racism really is all about. Instead of this bogus, reverse racism, colorblind garbage that they've come up with. We got to do a better job getting out our message. We got to do a better job fighting these phony, false, fake, misleading definitions that they attach to words that we use to fight against racism. We can do it. So that's what I want you to remember about the I Have a Dream speech. They took one part of it and weaponized it against us. Let's take it back. Again, I'm Augustus Corbett. I'm an attorney here in Dallas. And each and every week, we bring you a legal analysis of some trending story having to do with politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture, to empower you with what you need to defy this unjust legal system and to nullify systemic racism. Again, subscribe, like, share, comment, click the bell so that you'll be notified when we upload one of these videos. Help us grow the channel. And by the way, thank you for all the help thus far. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers over the next 30 days. Come on, push this video, push the other videos. Let's reach that 10,000 so that we can continue educating and informing folks about the continual struggle that we are in. Thank you. God bless you. Peace. And go and celebrate the rest of this great day for this great man. Blessings.